grow up, because of the fact that they've never faced any real sort of adversity, they kind of get themselves into trouble in that whether they're trying to find something to excite them and they're doing crazy things, or they just can't seem to, because life has challenges, right? You don't, no adult goes through their life and says, I'm not going to have any challenges. This is the perfect,
unless you live your life so like boring and so cautious that, like,
even at that, I don't know, right? It's like you walk through the street and there's things that come at you, right? So do you see that the kids that, because martial arts is not easy, you know, you put yourself through that adversity sort of voluntarily, right? You allow somebody to crawl up on top of you and feel that pain. Do you see that the kids that come through, or even young adults, you know, teenagers, early 20s that come through the gym and maybe have an ego on them, chip on the shoulder that, you know, I can do anything, and then once they've had to tap out a few times and feel humble.
It can be a very humbling experience for sure. Not everybody takes losing the same way. Everybody's different. So I think it's a case by case basis, and you know that's unfortunate because you know sometimes you read the play wrong, and then you might, you know, somebody might be distasteful towards the sport or something like that because, you know, just the way they handle failure, right? And I think failure is, you know, so important in life. You know, I think, you know, for myself, I used to be very cautious. I used to always want to win. I used to, you know, everything I did, right? And you know, I think one thing we kind of talk about is like, you know, your first major loss, right? And, you know, I remember like my first loss in jiu-jitsu matches. It wasn't until like I had, you know, quite a few, right? And you know, I was just devastated, right? But you know, I was able to kind of get over it because, you know, had competed so many times, and I think as in my amateur fighting career, you know, I was even in hockey growing up, like I was definitely always on the winning side of everything. I've always been very fortunate in that aspect. You know, I've lost. I'm not telling you I haven't lost. And in my amateur career, I think I had, you know, 5 fights, and you know, I hadn't tasted defeat, and you know, feeling pretty invincible, and then like the worst thing possible happened. Is,
oh man, I don't know if we're thinking about the same thing, but that was Trevor probably remembers too. It was one of the scariest moments in me. I've watched probably more than 300, like 400 fights.
Check this, and so, but my mom, like she's not a big, like she loves jiu-jitsu, right? And you know, because she knows that my pretty face can't get messed up, right? So she loves jiu-jitsu and supports me in that, but. The one thing, like she supports me in whatever I do, right? Yeah. But if she could have her way, like she wouldn't want me fighting MMA.
Yeah.
And so I think it was actually my 6th. I think I had my 7th fight maybe as an amateur. Sorry, I'd won 6, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, just watch. Like, come on, watch me.
It's a rematch too, because you beat him before.
It's a rematch. I was like, I've already beat this guy, Mom.
So she's there live?
No, because she lives in Manitoba.
Yeah, so she's watching.
They got the pay-per-view, right? Yeah. And her and my dad hadn't watched a fight of mine yet, and so they're like, that's their first fight. And I remember, man, like. I remember waking up actually.
Wait.
Just let everybody know.
No. Wait. So people, Trevor, can we hear your version of what happened? Because I mean,
I'll tell us straight up what happened. So so obviously I started out. I thought that there was like a 1 in 10 chance that I could be beaten, and it was, you know, kind of the perfect punch. And Buddy landed the perfect punch. You know, he came with this wild like lead push kick, and I backed up expecting the overhand right, which he normally throws, and he just made that right space for the uppercut. Oof. And just caught me right in the button, and I just went down like a bag of bricks and didn't, I guess, wake up for
a while.
I guess. Everybody sounds a little different.
People, it was scary.
Some of my people are like, we thought you were dead. You know, like, and I'm like, obviously, like, it wasn't scary for me because I was out.
You were out.
Right? But I guess, you know, I kind of came to in the ring. I don't remember that at all. What I do remember is coming to on a stool, and I was like, why the hell is there an oxygen tank? And I was like, and then I'm like, why are there paramedics? And I'm like, and I look up and I see some of my my cousins and my aunts down there. And I'm like, what?
This worried look on their face. And
all of a sudden, it just like, I had so much emotion, and like, I cried like a baby. I was like, like at that moment, I was like, I lost my fight. I was like, you know what I mean? Like that. I was like, what the hell? Like, You know what I mean? And I remember being like, obviously, I think I was a little bit rude. I was like, I want to shower, just get like, they're like, no, you need to sit out. I was like, and I remember, so they took me to hospital. I remember, I guess I was just talking gibberish the whole way. My buddy gets in the, like, one of my longtime training partners getting in the ambulance with me, and he said I was just talking like shit, like I was just like, you know, rude, and I was just like, you know, obnoxious. And all of a sudden he said, I just asked, I was like, give me your phone. And he's like, who are you gonna call at this moment? I was like, just give me your phone. Yeah. It's like, dial this number, and I told him to dial my mom. And I remember it was like, obviously I'd done this a few times where you mess out of your tree and all of a sudden you talk to your mom, you're like, oh, hey mom, how's it going? And he's like, you know, acted totally normal, right? He's like, it sounded so weird. It's like, yeah, like, oh no, it's all part of the show, mom. It's like, you know, it's like all part of the show. I'm totally fine, right? I'm just gonna go get checked up. You know, things are all good. She's just like, you know, like terrified, right? And, you know, obviously, I was in a lot of, losing. Like, let's get back to the whole idea. Is like that was, you know. But
so from the outside, like us watching and talking afterwards, we didn't know if you're gonna come back. I mean, I don't mean wake up. We didn't know if Jared was gonna be back, if it's gonna be the same caliber of fighter, if you're gonna be timid, you know, towards. And I remember the next fight after that. I don't remember exactly who you fought, but I remember Micah, right? Yeah. I remember you literally sat there, and there was this sigh of relief after you had won.
Probably, right? That was probably one of the most emotional moments in the ring for me. The octagon for me is that right after, you know, like the ref stopped and I just kind of rolled over and I was like, man, it felt so good. Like I started very timid and you know, it took a few fights. I was still kind of timid.
So what was it, Jared? What was it that, again, like, you know, that's adversity. That's for a profession.
So for me, I'll be honest. Yeah. Like after that, I went through probably 2 months of like depression, just to be honest, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that I was severely concussed, right? And you know, I could barely walk up the stairs without in pain. And you know, I'm going to give a shout out to a guy named Dan Boss. He's it took me a long time to get to see him, but he's like a witch doctor, man. That guy definitely fixed me up. He knew that I wanted to continue, and I did a lot of things. Like I reached out to people, you know. Hans used to be a champ in the amateur, and he had a tough knockout. One of his first losses was a knockout loss, and you know, so I reached out to him. I'm a good buddy of his, and asked him, you know, kind of what he went through. And I reached out to people kind of before me, and talked to a lot of, you know, people I look at like role models, right? And I asked for their opinion. It's not like I went strictly for one person, right? And I asked a group full of people their things, and then I kind of internalized it myself, and I realized that's not going to define me. That one knockout, like, sure, you know, it's an awful loss, and I hate to have it, and I cringe when I even think about it. But that doesn't define me. It's like how I come back that will define me, and right. And I think having, you know, like let's backwards, like to the situation where, you know, like I was at the lowest point of my life, and you know, I'd hurt somebody really bad, and I was talking to them, you know, at the worst moment of my life, and they said to me, it's like, you know, Jared, you know, as somebody that hurt so bad, like at that moment, I was like, I would never talk to that person if I was in his shoes, right? Like that's the way I looked at it. I was like, I thought there was no possible way. And he said to me, he goes, this will not be the thing that defines you. This will be the thing that makes your life amazing. And it was like, that was like the weight of the world lifted off my shoulders, right? And I've used that, you know, to this day. That doesn't mean it's okay to lose. That's not what I'm saying. Like I'm not okay with losing. Like I don't want to lose, right? Right. But I will come back, you know, 100 times, you know, stronger after, right? And I had to use that and sum up that kind of mentality after a loss. And I had to, you know, I was going to be damned to show people that, you know, that wasn't going to be the one thing that defined me. And I wasn't going to let that, you know, stop me. I wasn't going to let that be, you know, my story, right? And you know, I want people to, when they remember me, you know, like when I'm gone, like to be like that guy, like persevere. That guy,
he got through that.
Yeah, he stood up for, you know, what he believed, and he believed that, you know, achieving greatness, you know, still has failures, but he doesn't quit after that, right? And that's a huge part of what I stand for, is not quitting and not letting something scare me, right? Yeah, you know, if there's someone watching this or listening to this, and they're at the lowest point of their life, and they feel like get up every morning saying, this is it, this is the last day, I'm going to turn this around, and they just can't do it. They just,
they're trying hard. Maybe they don't have the loving energy and support that you had around you when you were going through it. What would be your advice? How can they break out of that situation?
Well, for me, man, like, I'm always going to be biased. I'm always going to steer people towards martial arts. I think that's, it's a beautiful art. It's something that truly, has been a pillar in my success. I wouldn't say it's the only thing. Like you could say it saved my life in some aspects, but at the end of the day, like, I had to have other things in play. Like, I never want to put just like one stilt. Like, I don't want to just use martial arts to be the only thing in my life.
You're not one of those jiu-jitsu saved my life kind of guys.
Well, I'm like, it's a huge part of it, man. It's like, it's one of the founding pillars for sure. But a house isn't built on just one pillar. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to have other aspects involved. And, and naturally my friends have become people in the martial arts. So that's another pillar. But like my family and, like, I had other things in my life that had to help hold me, accountable, right? And then just one thing, right? Because I remember, like, if I got injured, all of a sudden, then I'm going to burn my life down again, because now I can't do the thing,
can't do that anymore,
can't do the one thing that saved my life, So I had to realize that, and
it can't be one dimensional.
There. So I would just say that it doesn't matter if you don't come from, a situation where there's lots of loving people around. There are just resources out there. Doesn't matter where you come from. Doesn't matter what you got. There's resources out there, like, especially in North America, there are places to go, like, right, in Canada especially, right, like, there's places to reach out. There's people that want to help you that have nothing to do with you.
So get a good group of people.
We have a lot of people around.
You.
Like, there's people out there that are always willing to help you, whether you're homeless or not. There's always resources, like, around right now. People that want to help somebody that's in need, right? So just open your eyes, I guess, at that point, and reach out. Like, that's the biggest thing is be willing to ask for help. And that's where a lot of people struggle. That's where I struggled. I never wanted to ask people for help because I didn't want people to think less of me. So I had low self-esteem.
The ego
literally,
thing, right?
I did. Like, people were like, "Oh, I was too proud to ask." That's called false pride, and you have low self-esteem. And that's what I had. I had low self-esteem at the end of the day. I wasn't willing to ask somebody for help, and the reason was because I didn't want them to think I needed them.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's low self-esteem.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, throw that aside, get some humility, and ask somebody for help. Because people are willing to help you, and you will be able to crawl out of whatever, dark circle. And there's like, my story, I don't look at my story as being like this, like, death-defying thing. Like, there's like, every time I think about it, there's always a worse story. There's always somebody that comes from more struggle. There's always somebody that's having a harder time out there in the world, right? So that's what I always hold on to whenever I'm in a bad situation. I realize there's somebody else that's done better than me, right? That somebody else has crawled out of a deeper hole, right? So reach out, find something you love, and fucking do it,
right?
As long as it's healthy.
Awesome. Next chapter of your life, you're obviously looking to get into the UFC. We've you were trying out for the Ultimate Fighter. Some of that stuff fall apart. Don't want to go into that detail of that stuff, but tell us a little bit about why that's important to you, along the same lines of obviously good money, success, and all that stuff.
I just want to compete against the best. I want to challenge myself, to the best of my ability. If I fight the best before that and I lose, then at least I got to fight the best of my ability, and I got to challenge myself. That's really what it's all about. I want to challenge myself against the best, against, see where I stand, push myself to the limit, and that's what I'm looking for. Like, UFC is something cool. It's it's obviously a goal. It's obviously something, because it is the pinnacle, right?
Right.
But for me, I just want to be fighting the best. I want to.
You want to test yourself against the best,
right? I want to see what I'm made of, man. I want to. I crave that. Like whenever I, have a situation like maybe I'm an adrenaline junkie or something of that nature, right? Like, I always, whenever I have a little bit of doubt on something, like, I just want to hit it head on, right? And that's kind of how I live my life today. I don't want to have any what ifs or regrets, right? So.
Plus, it gives you a bigger platform, right? If it sounds like you have a message of.
That's the huge idea, right? Like, behind it all. At the end of the day, like, I believe I can hang with the best of them and make it exciting and do all those things. And then through the end, like, I'm going to use that as, kind of my voice, right? And be able to share my message on a broader stage,
and inspire a lot of people. Lastly, we know you have a fight coming up against Chris Anderson.
Yes,
we kind of mentioned that at the top. He's a champ at welterweight. He's coming up to face Jared Revel. Are you preparing any differently? Whatever you can share. We don't want to really talk fights.
Obviously for me, like he thinks it's a great fight for him. I think it's a great fight for me, right? That's what it comes down to.
It's awesome for the fans.
I hope he thinks it's a good fight for, so he's bringing his best, right? Obviously, I believe I'm going to put it on him. He's not going to be able to handle me. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
Right? And, he should feel the same way. When it comes down to it, like we are like meeting at a catch weight, I guess, of 180 for the middleweight title, right? So I'm kind of dropping down, and he's fighting at 180, which he's been fighting at. So that's the way I look at it. But I'm excited, man. It's
should be a good
huge
fight.
test for me. It's a huge test for me. He's undefeated. As a pro, he's tough as nails, and I'm super excited. Actually, like my whole team, we all enjoy watching. Like we always enjoy watching the guy fight. So for me, I always wanted to fight those. I always wish I could make. I think even Trevor will avoid yell. He's like, "Hey, can you make 170?" He's like, because there's nobody in the 185 division. And I was like, I wish I could make 170. I can't quite get all the way down there, right? But it just seemed like a deep pool at 170, right?
Huge.
But when I realized they're all fighting at 180 for this, like with the new weight, I was like, I can make that, and like it gives me an opportunity to fight a lot of really good guys because
test yourself against a different sort of group of people.
Because like I have throw my hats off to a lot of those, like they're good, right? And like that's who I want to fight. I've my last couple of fights haven't, always been a bit against the toughest guys, but the other guys that say yes to a fight with me. So I don't know, like,
so what else are you gonna do?
I'm trying to get, trying to get top caliber guys, right? It's not always the easiest, right?
Yeah.
So
awesome, man. We wanna thank you again and let you get back to training. Thanks, brother.
Awesome, man.
Take it easy.
Appreciate it, guys.